give you the 7,000 signatures asking that the United States support the UN Security Council resolution to condemn military settlements. And we think it's really important that our actions speak loudly and that we uphold international law and human rights.
Okay, thank you, that's that too.
My name is Peter Miller, and I appreciate your comments about paying the UN and not taking an a la carte approach to funding the UN. And I believe the same should be held true for international law and human rights. That I believe you made some pretty strong case that you support an a la carte approach to the state of Israel and what it does with the Palestinians. You say in negotiations, but there is a weaker party and a stronger party. The weaker party is under a brutal military occupation. So you didn't answer the question about the settlements, but I asked about the Goldstone report. I've read significant parts of the Goldstone report that reveal the possibility of very serious war crimes, human rights violations, and as the respective judge said, crimes against humanity. And yet I hear from the administration that it's flawed, but I haven't heard specifics. What is flawed? What's inaccurate? Because there's a lot of material there that would catch the eye of anyone who's concerned about human rights.
Well, first of all, I don't accept that we take an a la carte approach to human rights, quite the contrary. And the Goldstone report, which I assume you've read, is a long report with many aspects to it. It's the findings and recommendations with which we take greatest concern. They are imbalanced. They are sweeping findings of law which are not backed up by the facts. There's very little mention of the fact that this was a two-sided conflict. And there undoubtedly were and have been acknowledged, and we have condemned violations that occurred during Operation Cast Lead. But that does not mean that every aspect of the Goldstone report is meritorious, and we have pointed out with significant specificity those areas that we find flawed.
You spoke beautifully about the role of the United Nations to ensure peace and resolve conflicts. But when it comes to Israel, what I heard you say is that the UN should be hands-off. Given your administration and your statements on the illegitimacy of continued Israeli settlements, the illegitimacy of continued Israeli settlements, will you then support, or maybe more to the point, will you not veto the resolution now pending before the Security Council condemning the settlements as a, quote, major obstacle to the achievement of a just, lasting, and comprehensive peace?
Well, as you can imagine, this is a topical issue in New York. And the United States has taken, as you pointed out, very consistently, not only this administration but the previous administrations, the view that continued Israeli settlement activity is illegitimate and should be halted. We also believe very strongly that, as I said in my remarks, that final status issues, those issues that are at the core of what divides Israelis and Palestinians, can't be determined or litigated in the Security Council or the General Assembly. They may provide comfort and satisfaction to one or other parties at the time. The fact is, they can't be negotiated and therefore finally and fully resolved in that venue. And what happens when we get into these kinds of debates is that they end up being even more polarizing and complicate efforts to bring the parties back to the table. No one is more committed outside of the Palestinians and the Israelis and the parties to the conflict to resolving it than President Obama and this administration. On the second day that he came to office, he put Senator George Mitchell in charge as his special envoy. And he did that because he understands of the critical importance to the United States and indeed to Israelis and Palestinians of resolving this conflict through two states living side by side in peace and security. But there is no way to accomplish that without the parties returning to direct negotiations and agreeing themselves on these core final status issues. And we have not found it to facilitate that process by trying to prejudge them in the context of UN declarations.
So the answer to the question is you will not support the resolution?
I've answered the question.